Hey everyone, I'm Danny Ceballos, executive coach and founder of Unleashed Consulting. Welcome back to the Best Boss Whisperer, where serious leadership gets practical, personal, and sometimes even a little funny. Today's guest is Gabriel Najera, systemic leadership strategist and a master at helping executives connect the dots between vision and structure. So here's what to listen for. Your three whispers for this episode. 1. Strategy isn't a plan, it's a living system. 2. Leadership happens in the seams, the spaces between silos. And 3. The best leaders grow clarity, not control. Let's get started. So here we go. So we're thrilled to welcome Gabriel Najera. I just so appreciate that we're gonna talk about something that also really captivated my interest in my work many years ago, systems thinking. But can you tell us a little bit more about what captivated you? What was it about systems thinking that?
Well, I truly did not appreciate, when I first got exposed in the academic setting, systems thinking. I was a freshman engineering student at General Motors Institute, and but something told me I seen this before.
Hmm.
And going back and one of the things that I don't know if I shared with you that I was a seasonal farm worker with my parents. I was 5 years old and we were picking potatoes in the 1950s for 3 cents a bushel. So I'm a 5-year-old picking potatoes and happened to talk to Hank Myers. This is in Munger, Michigan. And, I was one of the curious, your 5-year-old asking questions. I says, Hank, what are these potatoes used for? They don't look like the potatoes I see at the grocery store. He says, no, these are, they make potato chips out of them.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm picking, potato chips and, I'm trying to connect the dots. And, this was my first exposure into a system. There is a system in place. And, then when I got exposed to it in the academic setting and, they gave us the reasons and the definition of a system.
Mm.
So in systems, when we're talking about systems thinking and thinking in systems is that system is perfectly designed to give you the output that you are getting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
some
I love
caveat
that.
and some definitions. So, I became intrigued with systems thinking. And then, when I had the opportunity to be a, business unit manager at Amico, I was able to, incorporate systems thinking behind the scenes. Okay. Let's sit down and learn what we're
Mm-hmm.
from our mistakes. It was, identify an issue. Let's come up with a solution.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next issue? What's the next problem? Come up with a solution. So for me, it was more not inspiration, but desperation because, I'm business unit manager. I have all these issues that I needed to have, resolve successful output. So behind the scenes, I would work, thinking in systems. Um, taking a look at different components within the organization, the different departments, what were the, trend lines? In other words, everybody, tracks sales, right? Profit margin, revenue, customers served and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So then how I would introduce systems thinking to my group is, present, the different, components that I was tracking as a business unit manager and asking the questions, what is the story behind these trend lines?
Mm-hmm. 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 I love
Okay.
that.
Without even, getting them involved into, okay, let me take you through a systems thinking course, what it's all about.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Just telling the story. Well, what is the story? And all systems thinking, these loops are, if this happens and it's connected to this, what does this happen?
Mm-hmm.
What happens here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's gold right there, right? So if nothing else, a listener could leave right now and say, I'm going to do systems thinking by picking a few components, trending them, and then asking for what the stories are beyond that. So to see the
There's a
intersection.
story behind the curve.
But
Yes.
it strikes me that you could pick the wrong things to track and measure and end up with these causal systemic relationships that do not hold water. Is that accurate?
Yes and no. Remember what I mentioned, that the system is perfectly designed to give you the results that you are looking at. So look at systems thinking as being a diagnostic tool.
Mm-hmm,
All
mm-hmm,
right. So, any component of the system, if it tells a story and people hearing the story not in agreement,
mm-hmm,
then it should be part of the system. Now,
mm-hmm,
the thing is, okay, you tell the story, and one of the things that I do is I present the systems thinking story. Then I ask the question, what could make this more real to you?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
in making it more real to you, you might say, Gabe, you failed to put in this component or this
Uh,
element.
uh-huh,
Where
uh-huh.
would it fit? Okay.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
there is no wrong component
mm-hmm,
of the system,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Uh, if it makes sense and if it tells a complete story that makes sense to that individual, then it's part of the system, and you could use it to further diagnose and come up with the appropriate intervention and problem solve.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
One of the examples that I give, and I don't have my flip chart, but I deal with a lot of technical people, right? Engineers. So engineers are very precise, exact, and I would draw a picture of a square.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I say, here's a picture of the square, and let me divide this square into, I'll draw the square 1, 2, and divide it up into 16 squares.
Okay.
Then I'll ask the question. I said, let me ask you a question. How many squares do you see?
Uh-huh.
And then they'll say, well, Gabe, these aren't squares because it's more of a rectangle. I said, no, well, just assume that it's a square. All right. How many squares do you see? And then some people say, well, I see, the 16. I see 17 because then they'll count the big square that encompasses it. Others see 35. I've had people see up to 50 some different, squares. And then I'll ask the question, who's right? And I'll say everybody's right because I asked the question, how many squares do you see? Not how many squares are there?
Yes,
All
yes.
right. So when you're taking a look at the system, there's this is what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm,
You may
mm-hmm,
say, oh, God, no, that's wrong. I don't see that. Well, no, that's what that person sees. That person
mm-hmm,
is seeing 17 squares. You're
mm-hmm,
only seeing 16.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
hope that makes
It
sense.
does. Yeah, it totally does. Yeah, I'm hearing two things. One is it's got to make sense, right? Even if it doesn't make sense to you, it's got to make sense to me for it to like that's the beauty of this experience, right? Is really
Yeah.
uncovering the parts of the system that may not be obvious to us. So Gabe, then what how so now I'm thinking of the metaphor. I'm an artist and I get all these colors and all these paints and all these ideas. What do I do as a leader to make sense of that and kind of create the system? I know you're a systems mapper, which is great,
Hmm.
but I don't think everybody can do that.
No.
So what do we do with like what do I do with all of this? Now I go. So I'm imagining I go in, I speak with my team. They say, yup, it's definitely this, blah, 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 blah. Here's my story. Another, nope, it's definitely this, blah, 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 blah. I get all that. What do I do with it?
Okay. What I would recommend for beginners or people that don't know much about systems thinking but could appreciate the concept. Um, let me let me preface that by saying, have you seen the movie Jaws?
Oh, yes. Yes. Originally, yes.
All right, so Jaws. Okay, there's I tell people, there's a theme that goes dun 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 dun. What happens next when you hear the theme? What happens?
I panic a little bit.
And the shark shows up, right?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, the shark. Yeah, you hear the song, the
Yeah.
shark shows up. So in systems thinking, there are classic stories that are called archetypes. And you could download a free copy of these archetypes by going to the systemsthinker.com. Yeah, and these are classic stories. So what I would do, okay, we're a team. Gabe wants us to think it's systems. I don't know what the heck he's talking about.
That's good. Exactly.
Get the archetype classic stories, and then
Yeah.
we'll see different stories. Like fixes that fail, uh, other components. Stories, and you could see and read that, and you could say,
That's a great idea.
"Hey, this song sounds familiar."
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
then you could take that and then, just start into, more inquiry and learning a little bit more about systems. But the classic stories right there, fixes that fail, tragedy of the commons is
Yeah.
another one.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could look at that and you could say, hey, that sounds like us,
Mm-hmm.
or it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, slowly introduce that and,
Mm-hmm.
and start talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
What I would recommend, it's easy. I mean, everybody is tracking their results,
Mm-hmm.
or I would
Mm-hmm.
hope so,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Mm-hmm.
all these different tracks, that you have. For instance, when I was in marketing, so the group, they didn't come to me; they noticed it themselves that there was billing errors, and then they applied a solution.
Right.
Okay? Well, after the solution was applied, not only did the billing errors continue, they got worse.
Or did they? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we started analyzing, sales and the production and taking a look at those trend lines, we were able to then determine behavior over time and ask the question, hey, when billing errors went this way, why did this other trend line go this way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's basic, okay? And then, have the group come up with their best response
Mm-hmm.
as best
Mm-hmm.
they can,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then pique their curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, to integrate systems thinking into your department
Yeah.
is making sure that people understand that it is a system.
Yeah.
It's not just a silo, right? Okay, that our actions have broader, longer term consequences. And what I like about systems thinking is that it identifies a lot of these unintended consequences that end up biting you in the rear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and then and
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the other things on systems thinking. I would encourage the business leaders who want to embrace systems thinking to be on the lookout for the assigning blame.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, okay, hey guys, we're getting together and we're going to be looking at the system because we have these chronic issues and
Yes.
problems that we need to
Yes.
solve. And right
Yes.
away, when you say that, people then say, oh, wow, yeah, I'm part of this system. And,
Mm-hmm.
gee, if I expose what's happening, if I'm, forthcoming into how I view this, gee, I don't want to be seen as,
Right.
being the main
Right.
culprit, I
That's
guess, in this
that's
system.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I hadn't even thought about that. That's interesting. Yeah, because I really respect the idea. So I'm noticing, as I've noticed before in our other conversation, how the fifth discipline is the book that's in your background, where
yes,
the princess stay, right? And that was my first introduction, Peter Senge. And he talks about the 11 laws of systems thinking. And the most important, one of the most important laws is his last one, which is there is no blame. And so, and I love that idea, right? So if we're gonna operate in systems thinking, we have to start with the notion that we are not solving people, we are solving a problem. What can we do?
yeah,
But I never thought about the fact that there's a certain amount of vulnerability that goes into this.
exactly.
Yeah,
Hypothetically.
yeah, I like it. I like it. It also, it occurs to me that this is good stuff to do on one's own as a leader. And it's
Mhm.
also really good to do with a thinking partner. Maybe it's a consultant, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's an expert like yourself, but at the very least to get out of our own head. And isn't the most important thing to, you have the story. Now, where in that story can I intervene and make the biggest difference given the system that's in place, right?
Exactly. Yep.
That's efficient and
Yep.
that's effective. And
Yep. Yep.
smart, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I remember, again, this was years ago, but there is something I'm struck by. To do that really does take some discipline. And it takes something that I don't think most organizational leaders in 2024 are used to, because it's so much about reacting as opposed to responding.
Yes.
Now, what
Yes.
what can you tell folks that if they want to do this and they want to do it right and they want to do it well, what do they need to do?
Okay. Well, first, understand and get a handle on what a system is, right?
Okay, great.
Get a handle on what that is, because for strategy training, and we would talk about balance sheets and accounting principles, and people would be nodding their heads, but then people would come up to me. Now these are MBA executive, types,
Yeah,
and would
yeah.
tell me, Gabe, can I ask you a question? I really don't understand what, this component of a balance sheet is. So people aren't, forthcoming on what they don't know. So people are not in an agreement. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So the first thing, what people should do is really get a good handle on what do we mean when we talk about systems and systems thinking, right? What is it that we mean? Right. And I forget who said this. I think it was Peter Drucker. You can't manage what you can't control. You can't control what you can't measure, and
Hmm.
you can't measure what you can't define.
Mm,
So
mm,
let's define all this stuff first, right? Then go into the measurement, and then embrace a culture of curiosity on what is the picture? What is this thing?
mm, mhm, mhm,
Right? So we're
mhm,
coming up with solutions. That
mhm.
solution shows up later on as another issue or problem
Right,
in the system.
right.
One of the very easiest examples I could say, I remember as a kid helping my grandfather, put a linoleum floor. I don't know if you remember the old,
Oh, yeah.
okay, you roll it down, you roll it, and
Yeah,
then you notice that there's a bubble of the floor over there. You roll it over there, and
yeah.
then hey, the bubble showed up over there. So you roll it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so what my grandfather did, he would where's the bubble of the bubble? Get a little pin,
Uh,
poke a hole in it,
uh,
and then roll it over. And
yeah,
so in
yeah,
systems thinking, that's a way. Without systems thinking, you're coming up with a solution. Rolling over the bubble,
yeah.
it's going to show up some other place.
Yes, 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 yes. Interesting. Yeah, I like that a lot. I was thinking, okay, so yeah, and then yeah, to know how it's going to operate, and that the bubbles, and have, to know that story so that you know what to do to have the highest leverage strategy, which is the pin in the bubble,
The pit
right?
in the
That
bubble.
makes
Yeah,
the biggest difference.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Least obvious intervention, point of
Yes.
intervention.
Yes. Yes. Senge says, yeah, the least obvious answer is usually the most effective, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes people take this the wrong way when I say it. I tell people, I'm a pretty lazy guy, but I'm the hardest working at trying to come up with an easy solution.
Yes. 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 Isn't that what it's about? Right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Efficient and
Yeah,
effective. Yeah.
so I guess, going back and see, how can you implement it, the culture, it's going to take some reflection, and, embrace what Peter Senge calls, continuous learning, the learning
Yes.
organization,
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe on the next time I cajole you into an interview, we can talk about how do we get this throughout our organization, right? It's one thing for organizational leaders, but there is something about the entire organization embracing a culture of learning, a culture of big picture thinking, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, Gabe, what would you? So we're winding down here, but what would you? Is there a primer that you would send folks to get a quick, efficient understanding of systems thinking? Like you said, that first step is appreciating systems and systems thinking.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the things that I would do, there's for those who want to delve deeper. I mean, the book that I have behind me, The Fifth Discipline, it is a pretty good book. But if this is your first introduction to systems thinking, it may be a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah.
So Donna Meadows,
Hmm.
uh, she has a book, Danella Meadows, excuse me. And what's the name of the book? Thinking in Systems, and it's a primer. And I believe if you just Google Danella Meadows and that book,
Yeah, we'll find it.
yeah,
Yep.
Thinking in Systems, and it's a primer.
Let's
And
put
for those who want to deepen their understanding of systems thinking and its application, it's an excellent introduction to systems thinking, and it provides both a conceptual framework and practical tools to be able to see beneath the surface of this complex world that we
yeah,
deal
that's
with. The other thing that I would do is the systemsthinker.com. They have a lot of information, and that's where you could download a copy of these classical stories, the
the
archetypes,
archetypes.
and just take a look at that. Okay, yeah, this sounds like the situation that I'm in,
Mm-hmm.
and just familiarize yourself, with systems. And then, even though I just came across a webinar series on social change,
Mm-hmm.
systems thinking for social change, which that for me, I as we're able to apply systems thinking, and we've seen some remarkable community changes by
Mm-hmm.
people embracing
Mm-hmm.
and you know working with nonprofit individuals. It's the way we're thinking about this that is causing these trend lines to interact the way they're interacting.
So much there. Yeah, so much. Yeah. Yeah, great. So, in the spirit of continuous learning, we will definitely post the link to the primer resource that you said. What's the best way for folks to be in touch with you, Gabe, to be in your universe?
Well, you could reach out to me. I'm in LinkedIn, and I do have a website, najeraconsulting.com, but it's an old site. We have a new one coming up here within the next month or two. So, you could connect with me onto LinkedIn. I'll share my email address with you, Danny. You could share it
Show
with your
notes.
group.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
We'll
feel
put it.
free to give me a call, man. I'm all for learning,
Mhm.
and sharing, my experiences and my learning with others. Okay.
Awesome.
And I
Awesome.
promise not to give anybody a brain hernia, man. I'm pretty simple guy, man.
And the fact that, I'll just say the fact that you work with nonprofits and social change and for profits that have that spirit of we're
Yes.
making an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, just props. Thanks again, Gabe. Bye, everybody. That was Gabriel Najera and me, unpacking what it means to think systemically and lead with clarity, connection, and courage. Hold on to these three whispers. Strategy is a system, leadership lives in the seams, and clarity always beats control. I'm Danny Ceballos, and this is the Best Boss Whisperer. Because the best bosses don't shout, they whisper.